People are lost. Most people go through life aimlessly, merely following the crowd because that's where everybody else is going. The problem is, the people we follow also don't know where they're going. And when I realize this, that I am on my own and I have to get out of bed for reasons that I chose, the mornings were less cold. The world is full of influences, culture, media, trends from the millions of social media apps that we have nowadays. They all shape your beliefs and decisions. And if you don't have an underlying foundation of values or principles, then who you are is dependent upon what everybody else is doing, which changes before you even realize it. And you know what that's called? An identity crisis waiting to happen. If you don't choose your values, others will choose them for you. If you don't choose your beliefs, others will choose them for you. If you don't choose how to use your time, others will choose it for you. Thank you, Mark Manson, for those wise words. This happens when you don't have that ultimate what. Not necessarily a why, but a what. What exactly are you working towards? Life is chaotic. If you don't impose a sense of order, at least to the extent in which you are capable of, you will be swept away by the tides of life, and you'll be on a deserted island before you even realize it. An aimless life, or a life where your days are mostly decided by other people, your boss, your friends, is of course obviously bad. But to be at the mercy of your instinct, now that's way worse. Sure, trusting your gut from time to time isn't bad. There's nothing wrong with having those days where you don't really have a to-do list and you can just chill around and do whatever you feel like doing. But a life where leisure is your primary activity, how would you be able to answer when someone asks you, hey, what do you do? Like, what in the world do you do exactly? What you feel like doing? And how often do our feelings change? That is what I meant to be at the mercy of your instincts. This isn't just about discipline, it's having self-respect. A life dictated by external forces isn't freedom at all. You're merely a slave to randomness and again, your instincts. So what is this North Star in the title? This is where I'll try to deviate from the usual find your purpose spiel that everybody goes on about when you're lost in life, quote unquote. Allow me to be boring for a few seconds and explain what the North Star is exactly. The North Star, or Polaris, is a guiding light for navigators back then. It's basically this very bright star at a fixed point in the night sky, which is always there, so it's been used as some form of guide to know which direction is north. That's why it's called North Star. It helps determine direction. So the main idea is, the North Star is not a purpose. It's a direction. Many people talk about finding your purpose, but purpose can not only be vague, it's incredibly overwhelming. North Star, however, is way simpler than that. It's a reference point. It's a guiding direction when you feel like you're lost. It's more of a compass than a map. A map shows every road and possible path, but a compass only points north. So it's not everything, it's just a reference point. Think of it as an anchor for when things get chaotic and out of place. When you're lost, you'll have an idea of the general direction to head towards. This doesn't have to be a specific destination, it's a general direction. It's that way. I'm not telling you where exactly, but it's there. Just keep moving that way. You won't always follow a straight path, but you will know that you're on the right one because one, it's anchored on your principles and what you believe in, and two, your values. Again, values that you chose. That's very important. And as past me experienced back then, you can be lost on the right path. We're going to get a little tricky with the WH words here, so I hope you follow. A North Star essentially transforms a what and a how. If you don't have a where, you won't have a what. If you don't have a what, you don't have a how. I'll say it again. No where, no what. No what, no how. And no how means no what again. I hope that makes sense. Essentially, the direction we head towards shapes our decision making. When you have direction, you make better decisions because everything you do, or at least a majority of them, aligns with something meaningful because you chose it. It matters to you. That's why it's called value. You value it. And aside from this, it makes setbacks and failures bearable. Failures won't feel like downfalls. They will simply feel like as if they were slight nudges in your trajectory. but you're still on the right direction. And when people realize this way later in life, they tend to have regrets because they look back on their lives and realize they spent a majority of their life going around in circles, following what everybody else is doing. If you don't choose a direction, you become whoever or whatever the world shapes you into. And we all know how messed up the world can be. Again, I would like to emphasize this is not the same as purpose. It's part of it, but the goal is not necessarily to find a why and a greater, grander purpose that's supposed to benefit humanity and all that. But you might be thinking, isn't this restrictive? People think it's difficult because having a North Star somehow restricts them from experiencing life genuinely. But again, since it's a general direction and not this one thing, it doesn't really limit you. It's not a box. Is that a box? But let's say you like chaos and you like the unpredictability of life. Yes, unpredictability can be exciting, but living a life entirely without structure has its consequences. The trade-offs of embracing it too much and not having a sense of where you're going and you're just going with the flow. But what if the flow is a rushing flood? That sounded way more brilliant in my head, I swear. Okay, let's say you don't have a North Star. That's fine. It's not about having the perfect answer because you can't really narrow down North Star into this one noun or adjective or verb. And you can't really contain it in a single box either. Start by defining what you don't want and what are the things in life that you value the most. Again, value the most. That's why we use the word value. Most people tend to overlook that. Orient yourself upwards. This is the Jordan Peterson quote that made me think about this North Star thing in the first place. When you have a North Star, it urges you to look at life actively, aiming towards something. Not necessarily something greater or something ambitious or spiritual. It's just something that hopefully betters your life and the lives of those around you. And most importantly, something that you yourself chose. Built from your values and based on your principles. I know I keep yapping on about values and principles. I will make a video on that, so stay tuned. That's such a YouTuber thing to say. These North Stars, they don't have to be bright as the literal polars in the sky. They can be as simple as a project outside of your academic or work life. It can be a skill or a hobby that brings joy to you, regardless of whether or not it brings practical benefit. Or what I myself picked up recently, the pursuit of knowledge. Expand your knowledge about the world and learn. Learn something new. There's so much to learn. It's not that you don't have something to aim for. It's just that you haven't found it yet. And it will not be found on its own. Go look for it. A North Star doesn't have to be bright and beautiful. It's a reference point to base off of when you feel lost in those dark nights. It gives you a sense of direction. That's what the North Star does and has been doing for the past few centuries. The North Star takes on a much more realistic take on finding our purpose and all that. After all, finding your purpose, your why, is incredibly intimidating for most people, including me. You don't need to know the destination. You don't need to have a detailed picture of what you would like your life to be in the next 5, 10, 20 years. You just need to have an idea where forward is, where the future is, and your North Star is the direction in which you can find those things. If you refuse to look for that North Star, to choose your values, then life and society will choose them for you. And life doesn't care where you end up. That's all for me tonight and my yapping. Hopefully you found something valuable. Now go look for that North Star.